Smith with Model Aviation and Park Pilot Magazine. I'm here with Matt Ruddock, media producer, and you have, is that a Tiny Whoop?
This is the Tiny Whoop. Now, if you've been living under a rock, you probably have never seen one of these before, but I'm guessing you have. These things have been everywhere for over the past year. It's called a Tiny Whoop. It's essentially a blade inductrix with a camera, upgraded motors, so it can be flown FPV.
Why is it called a Tiny Whoop?
So it's called a Tiny Whoop because there's a group of pilots, FPV pilots, out in Colorado called Team Big Whoop, and one of their pilots, Jesse Perkins, was essentially the brainchild behind the Tiny Whoop. He decided to take the inductrix, stick an FPV camera on it, stick some upgraded motors so that it can carry the FPV camera, put his goggles on, and fly away.
So tell me a little bit about the stock inductrix so we know the difference.
So the stock inductrix looks just like this. It's been around for about a year and a half or so, and it's just a little micro quadcopter that Horizon Hobby put out. What's really cool is it uses ducted fans with these guards that go around the props so that you can fly it, you can crash it, and it just keeps on going. You can run into the wall, bounce right off, keep flying. It's actually one of the better, I think, beginner micro quads on the market as far as I was concerned, and it was a lot of fun to fly. It's actually kind of a no-brainer that you try to put a camera on it.
And you touched on briefly what's required to take a inductrix to make it into a Tiny Whoop, but like expense-wise, what are we looking at?
You just take a camera, which is going to cost you somewhere in the neighborhood of $25, $30. Upgraded motor is going to cost you around $25 or so. Battery, you will have to upgrade your battery. You can get away with the stock battery. Your flight time is going to be diminished quite a bit. So the more popular battery that's on the market right now is the MyLipo.de battery. It's a 205 milliamp 1S battery. It's going to cost you about anywhere from $7 to $10 per battery, and get a few of those. So depending on how many of those, you're still under $60, $70. To actually get it up in the air. Now that does not include FPV goggles. So if you don't have FPV goggles, you're going to have to factor that in as well.
Okay. And how time consuming is it? I mean, once you have all the parts to do the conversion?
Once you got the parts to do the conversion, depending on how good you are at soldering really tiny solder joints, 15, 20 minutes. It's a really quick conversion. I've got it down now where I can do it pretty quick because I've done a few. Really the solder joint is going to be what holds people up. But like I said, you can use a pigtail style connector to kind of take care of that.
Now, if someone's not comfortable in soldering or wants just an out-of-the-box, ready-to-go experience, there's an option for that as well.
There is an option for that. So just a few months ago, Horizon Hobby decided to release their Inductrix FPV line. So what they did is essentially took the stock Inductrix, put a camera on it, and they added a cool little canopy on there to protect the camera and the camera antenna. Upgraded the motors, stuck an upgraded battery in the box, and put it on the market. So this is the Inductrix FPV. You can get one of these bind and fly for about $99, and you can get a ready-to-fly version, which comes with, obviously, the Inductrix FPV, comes with a radio, comes with an LCD screen that you can fly FPV with, and that's, I think, $199.
Once you have one of these, whether it be the FPV Inductrix or the Tiny Whoop, I mean, obviously you can use it to explore your home or your office, but what other things are people using these for?
So one of the cool things that people are getting into right now is racing these things. So what's a lot of fun is you can essentially race these anywhere. You can set up a race course inside your house, in your office, provided you have permission from your bosses. You could set up a race course anywhere. And because it's so inexpensive, you can get a lot of your friends to join along and have a really good time racing around with each other. One of the other things people are also doing is they're buying these guys. So these are upgraded flight controllers that you'll essentially replace the green circuit board that's there with one of these. This is called the B-Brain from New B Drone. And what this does is allow you to plug this in via this micro USB port to Betaflight. So you can actually go in and change your PID settings, and people are doing some really cool acrobatic stuff with their Tiny Whoops outside in the broad daylight and middle of windstorms and everything else. So this is really cool. One of these costs about $49.99. A lot of online retailers are carrying them right now. The other important thing to note about these You can get these in 2 different flavors. One version is designed for DSMX, so still Spectrum native. You can also get one that's native to the Taranis, the FR Sky Taranis transmitters, which a lot of the FPV pilots are using now.
So you talked a little bit about racing them. Obviously, you can set up a course anywhere. Tell us a little bit about that, about setting up a little race course.
So what's fun about these is because they're so small, like I said, we can set up a course anywhere. You can also use anything as a gate. You can use I've seen guys use chairs as gates. I've seen cardboard gates that they just cut out of boxes that they had laying around. One of the, I think, more popular things right now is either using LED strips of some sort to create a cool nighttime style gate, or you can use just balloons. If you think about the balloons used to make balloon animals, you can form those into gates really easily. What's nice about those is they're so light. Painter's tape, stick it on the wall, boom, there you go. Air gate that costs like $5.
So if you're using one of these to, like we talked about earlier, maybe just explore your home or your office, that's one thing. Obviously, if you're trying to race through these gates and you're racing other people, you have the likelihood probably to crash more often. Absolutely. How durable are these with the camera?
They're actually really durable. So this particular tiny whip that I've got here has a dipole antenna, which is this straight antenna here, as opposed to the cloverleaf style, which I found isn't quite as durable. It tends to bend up a little bit when you crash. But I'll tell you what, I've crashed this thing more times than I'd like to admit to, and it's still going, and it's still all the original parts that I put on here initially. The only thing that tends to be a little fragile, and this is just a standard frame that I can kind of show you a little easier. These motor mounts have struts that connect to each side of the pods. That tends to be the weak point. That's where things tend to break a little bit easier. We've actually taken a little welder's glue, and this is off the advice from the guys at Tiny Whoop, to put a little dab on each of those strut joints, and that tends to secure them up a little bit and make them a little stronger. The other thing that I recommend to everybody is to get one of these braces. So this is actually a 3D printed brace, which works perfectly well. There's some people out there selling carbon fiber ones. As long as it's light is the only important thing. And what's nice about that is it keeps those pods and those struts kind of in place, and they're far less likely to break.
Well, now that we have a basic understanding of the Inductrix and the Inductrix FPV and the Tiny Whoop, we're going to actually go race them and show some of the fun of that, right?
Yeah, because, I mean, it's fun to look at them, but it's flying. That's what's really fun. So we've got a course set up upstairs here at AMA headquarters, and we're going to take a spin with them, and we'll let you guys take a look at some of the footage. We want to thank you guys for sticking around and checking out the Tiny Whoops with us, and we hope you tune in next time.